Peace, HHDG. We are on another episode of HHDG Media, the podcast. And shout out to everyone that's always tuning in, sharing, liking our interviews on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook group, HHDG. As you can see on our bottom banner, you can always go to our website, hhdgmedia.com, for the latest music, written interviews, our merchandise, as well as upcoming events. Big shout out as always to our company, HHDG Media Inc., which consists of our 5 owners, T. Smith, Skilly Top, myself, Wiki, Demir, and Rock Vader KB. For tonight, we have a very positive-minded lyricist who has always, since I've heard of him, always have the ill bars, but not always perpetrate what we always expect, from the environment that a lot of us have come up in. And he eloquently has put together so many ill projects, from Quiet Life 1 and 2 to The Gorgeous Killer. And one thing that I've always noticed is his energy is similar to those that he's worked with, like Analogic, Silent Night, Two Hungry Brothers, and even more recently with his new album, These Things Take Time, with Paris producer Parental, which dropped on May 9th. And again, he creates music that is about life, and he puts it in a positive minded way, which can also be very relatable and also refreshing. But it doesn't come off as some happy-go-lucky type of vibe. It just is very positive minded, and to be able to do that with the way things are in life, and to still be able to have that ability, is one that I like to pick his brain about and find out how he's capable of doing that throughout his career, and at the same time find out more about his life in general. How does he keep his mental health in a positive frame of mind, and also how do you keep your pen sharp as well in such a way? There's Method Man hasn't cursed in his songs for quite some years now, and he said before that has helped him elevate his lyricism. So in the same vein of the artists that we're going to speak with tonight, I'd like to know what has kept him to elevate it to the point of, in his new album, These Things Take Time. So without further ado, coming from Oakland via Brooklyn, I'd like to introduce Fresh Daily. Peace.
Peace.
How you doing?
I'm fantastically well by far.
Great to hear. Before we go into your past, I want to say the song Made with Love is a great song, and coming from one father to another, even though I don't have any daughters, I have 2 sons. I love how you embraced, from the beginning, and then speaking on the grandmother as well, and having that connection, is something that when you're outside and you see other fathers with their children, you love to see how they interact, how they know things about each other, even though there's a big age gap. And so, I love to hear, beautiful written songs created like this.
Word. Thank you. This is, I am a gentleman of a certain age, and this is my first child. And so I think for the longest time, I was like, very much like, man, fuck them kids, like after hitting, I think after you hit 40, if you don't have kids, you're like, man, we're buying Jordans and catching flights, and you don't really, if you've lived most of your adult life or all the way up until almost middle age
Hmm.
and weren't a parent, then I don't think it's really in the forefront of your mind. Parenthood or the considerations of parenthood aren't really in the forefront of your mind. And so when this happened, um, my fiance at the time and I had taken a week off of work to plan our wedding because we were both busy, we both worked, and we were like, man, we've been engaged for almost 2 years, it feels like. If we don't sit down and figure out who we're going to invite and where we're going to do this at, a
Hmm.
lot goes into that. I said, let's just take a week off of work, let's use some vacation days, sit down and like figure this out for real, for real. And
Yeah.
so we did that. And that week that we found out that we went to do that is the week that we found out we were expecting.
Oh wow.
And so we were like, oh, and it kind of flipped our world upside down for about a good couple of days, almost a week. Not in a bad way, but oh snap, like we're gonna be parents. Like that's crazy, like we're both over 35. And this was not in the bingo on our bingo card at all. Um, and so like the initial panic uh of like, oh, we've got to scramble came through, but like I think I put a lot of faith in God that things will what's gonna be is gonna be, and it's gonna work out. And you know up until that first doctor's appointment, I think we had a fair amount of like, oh snap, like this is really real. And then we got to that doctor's appointment, and they put the jelly on her belly, and they did the sonogram, which is like a
Hmm.
wand that they put over. And I'm looking at the monitor, and the monitor is black, and then she said, "You see that right there?" And I'm squinting trying to see what she's talking. I said, "See what?" She said, "You see that little flicker of light? That's the heartbeat." And like in that moment, I was like, "Oh, this is mad real, yo." And I just looked at my fiance, and she looked at me, and we just like felt this wave of peace wash over us. And it was dumb early in the morning too. It was like, well, dumb early for me at the time. I get up way earlier now, but it was like we had the doctor's appointment was like 7:30, 8 o'clock, so it was
Hmm.
really early, and we had to drive from Oakland to Berkeley and we left that appointment like, yo, it's gonna be all right, yo. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be everything's gonna work itself out. We just felt like this ill feeling of peace, like this dope feeling of peace, and happiness. But when I looked at that 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 sonogram, it looked like Deep Space Nine. You know what I mean? It looked like outer space. I was looking, is this the Doppler radar? But then you just saw that little flicker of light on that monitor, and that same day, like I believe I was like after work, I wrote that song. Um, the whole thing, it just poured out of me. I guess it was just bubbling in me because of all the feels. Um, and that's why I started it off like I saw your heartbeat on a monitor today, a spark of light in the Andromeda, the full culmination of all of my promises made and prayers from your great grandmama back in the day before she passed away. Anxious appointment with a capital A. Then the doc showed us you, and I have to say, it was perfect. We both laughed unafraid accordingly. Me and your mom's had on the Jordan 3s. And we did. That day, we just so happened to both be wearing Jordan 3s. So it wasn't just something cool, some cool shit to say
To
for
put in
a
there.
rap. We
Wow.
literally both had all the Jordan 3s. So, and like that piece that's the piece that God gives you. You know what I mean? When His hand is in your life and you're blessed. So, and now we have a beautiful baby girl, and
It's
the
beautiful.
I think the wild shit is, my grandmother got arrested, so she didn't ask me for anything, and she always gave me everything. and I had a very very difficult upbringing. And my grandmother asked me for two things. She asked me for a great grandchild, and she asked me like when I make it, take her to Aruba, and then she passed away before I could do either of those things. And so that kind of haunted me for a long time after she passed.
Mm.
Um, but after my daughter was born, uh, that really was like, oh, I really wish she could see this. But my friend said the other day, he's like, you know what you got to do, right? You got to take your daughter to Aruba and close that circle. So that's in the plans.
All right. There it is. That's
Yeah.
beautiful, man.
Thank you, G.
Yeah. Now, was your grandmother, you know, a big part of you growing up?
Oh yeah, for sure. My mom has had struggles with mental illness, and we didn't know that then. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I haven't always been very vocal about my relationship with my mother and my music, or just in general, just because I like to have a separation of church and state with my music. But as I've gotten older, and I took a fair amount of time away from music, like I was telling you earlier, from like 2013 to 2021, and I needed time to find myself and make sure that I was straight. And in that time, like of growth, like I've decided, like I need to be more forthcoming, if for cathartic reasons only, in my music, because that's going to set me free and that's going to be the truest form of expression. So as I've been writing lately, I've made allusions to little things, especially on this project. I made like just small allusions to it. But yeah, she was a big part of it, yo. She was a big part of it. What she provided was a buffer between all the drama that was happening with my mom and my life. My I feel like God had my grandmother as the buffer between me and my mom for when things were really hairy and I couldn't deal because I was a kid, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
she was right there as the buffer between me and my mom. And even into adulthood, when I couldn't take care of my mom, my grandmother opened her doors to her daughter so that she could take care of her daughter because I couldn't do it, you know what I mean? And that allowed me to go chase music and live my life. And she kind of threw it in my face sometimes. She was like, I'm sacrificing for you. But no, God rest her soul, yo. She was super dope lady, man. Super, she was, and a real character too. So I'm half black, half Puerto Rican, and my mother's side is the Puerto Rican side of the family.
Hmm.
And so, if you know your New York Puerto Rican women, like just times 10, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. My two grandmothers and my grandfather, were definitely heavily involved in my early childhood. Um, my grandparents on my mother's side, they actually used to take me and pick me up from pre-K,
Wow.
and I stayed over there for a little while until my parents and everything came home from work. So I still I have those memories vividly even to this day, and you know, and my grandfather on my mom's side, he passed away when I was still a child, so I didn't know too much after that, except for the things that my grandmother or my mother used to tell me about him. And then my grandmother on my father's side, we she actually lived in the projects that we live in. So on Staten Island, there was two different projects in the same neighborhood, which was separated by maybe about 2 blocks. So a lot of my family cousins were in those areas as well. And just having so much family around you like that, it creates you know a different type of bond from when families like spread all over.
For
you know
sure.
you get
For
to
sure.
literally see them almost every day.
Yeah, and my mom's side of the family is super dysfunctional, and not they don't some a lot a lot of them don't talk to each other and all that. But I really give thanks that My grandmother and I were that close. You know, what I mean, even my mom and my grandmother had friction, but my grandmother was like my real saving grace. So I really miss her. And so in that song, obviously, you know, um, I had to allude to, how she was, she prayed for this child. I mean, she's not even here anymore. She's an ancestor, but this child has been wished for and prayed for, um, from way back. So, off top, she's special. You know what I mean? And even currently, her current grandma, my mom, who I don't really have a strong relationship with, but she's a very she's an avid, zealous Christian woman of God. Like, all she does is she prays for me, and she prays for my daughter, she prays for my wife also. If she does nothing else, which she
Mhm.
can't really because of her circumstances, that I know for a fact that woman prays. So it's so crazy. Um, and so yeah, I mean, and then it just shows up in the music. I think that is, even when I was on hiatus from music to just better myself, I think it was going to be inevitable that there was going to be creation in some form, uh, of music or whatever. I was writing the whole time, even if I wasn't actively putting out music, I was writing. So I think it's only natural that, like, once I, had a return to form in 2021, that I would just be, a little bit more consistent in putting out, thoughts and ideas and stuff. And yeah, that I think you said you've been listening to my music for a while. I think, something that's a consistent theme has been, uh, life experience, for lack of a better way to put it. I think I would consider myself like
Definitely,
uh,
yeah.
even when I had a different rap name. My very first project was called Life Music because I wanted to make sure that there was nothing, I talked about that I didn't live. You know what I mean? Even the braggadocio stuff, I always wanted it. I never wanted anybody to pull my card and say, that's not you. So I think it was really important for me to like mirror life. And sometimes I don't think my life was that exciting, or I needed to live more of it. And I think in that space that I took off from, 2013 to 2021, I got to live. You know what I mean? I got to live life and really experience life, and I think that gave me, more things to talk about, and that's kind of where we are with, like, these things take time.
That's great. You know, and I love that how you broke that down and also brought in how you got to your new album. You know,
Th-
again, a lot of us men don't speak out on, our feelings and try and see that, there might be something wrong. I need to, reflect on that, take a step back for whatever might be causing that. Could be everything in life. It might be a particular person. It could be a particular situation you're in. But, a lot of us are still raised in that, oh, you're a man, you got to be a certain way. You got to suck it up and, just go through it. And
yeah,
that creates a lot of internal turmoil.
100%. 100%. I agree with that. I also I have a really spicy take on that too, though. Also, and feel free to interject and disagree, or the comments could disagree or whatever. But I think that it's important as a man to feel your feels and express those feelings, and do so in a healthy way
Mhm.
where you don't tear anybody down. If you're sad, you know how to process those feelings. I think that takes time, but to process those feelings in a way that's healthy, and you can communicate effectively those feelings. But I feel like at the same time, and this is it could be just an internal reflection based on what the world has given me. I feel like when it comes to men, though, I think, very often, even when people say they want you to express yourself and they care about how you feel, I feel like the world doesn't really truly care about how men feel. I think we're more judged on our ability to provide and protect. than
Hmm.
anything. So I think it's really important to figure out how you communicate those feelings in a way that doesn't make others feel like threatened or what I mean, because at the end of the day, you can you know to I feel like people don't really give a fuck how men feel. That like despite everything that how healthy it is to express yourself, how healthy it is to feel your feelings. I think people don't really care. I think they want you just to be able to process those feelings in a healthy way. So I think number one is being able to process those feelings and call them and say, hey, this thing that happened, it made me feel that way, and this is what I would like. I mean, like, kind of be, if you're gonna vent, to kind of be like more solution based. Like, yo, this made me feel that way, and this is the solution I would like so that it doesn't happen and I don't crash out or anything. Because at the end of the day, I feel like, again, like people don't really care how men feel. They care about how we process those feelings. But that's just my spicy take. I could be wrong. The one thing I know for sure is that I don't know everything. So
Yeah, I feel that it's almost like a politically correct type of thing to say more than anything else. And the problem is, I wouldn't say no. Let me rewind. I feel that more men should speak in groups before trying to, you know, take it on themselves. And
agreed.
and the reason I say that is, you'll find out that there's a lot more similarities going on with you than you actually would know. And at that same time, when you open when you open up to others, then there's a sense of comfort that I'm not the only one, and maybe in a certain way their situation might help mine.
Yeah, and that has to be that has to be led by other men.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it's important that that kind of representation and that being able to have a mirror held up to you and to be vulnerable. It works. In my opinion, it works best in a community setting where there are other men to a hold you accountable, but two that you can be vulnerable in front of. And my whole life, I was like, I got friends. I don't really need that kind of thing. I wasn't. I don't think I was ever like anti therapy or anything, but I was
Hmm.
just like, I don't know these niggas. I'm not, what I mean? I don't know how vulnerable I want. I mean, I'm a New Yorker. I don't know how vulnerable I need to be in front of strangers. But recently, I went to like a men's wellness thing that was facilitated in the Black Panther Museum here in Oakland, and it was just a group of about maybe 30, 25, 30 men in this space, and then they broke out into smaller groups of like six or seven or something like that. And there was like a book of affirmations. I ended up giving it not necessarily just affirmations, but questions that would allow you to journal, that was given out. And it was written by a brother named Kariga Bailey. And they assigned like a different page of this book to each group, and you got to talk about it, and that kind of sparked discussion. And I thought that was super dope. You know what I mean? I was in a one The one thing that it did for me was it let me know that, like, as heavy as whatever you're going through, there's someone else who could that might have had it worse. You know what I mean? And they were people in that circle. I didn't know these brothers, but they were really bearing their soul and talking about uh the traumas and victories that were the sum total of their whole being today, and how they overcame them or how they're working through them. And that was dope to kind of like step outside yourself and hear. And I think that type of shit, engaging in it'll ultimately make itself known in the music if you're willing to be a vessel, uh, and use music, if you create music as a cathartic self-expression.
Definitely right. And what made you, when you started rhyming, want to speak more about your life in the music?
Uh, I think I just think as a as a New Yorker, I just think I ain't really want anybody to call me out and say you're a phony. So I was like, I'm gonna stick to what I know, and I know my own life experiences, and I always joked in past interviews or just with friends that I make music for me and hope other people like it. Like even if that's a little narcissistic, I'm gonna make the shit I like first and talk about what I want to, and
Hmm.
then if other people rock with it, I'm really gonna hyper focus on those people and give them everything. You know what I mean? I don't think I've ever been one to kind of like even just the other day I was sitting playing these things take time for somebody and they were like, this don't really sound like any of the music that's out now. It has kind of a throwback feel, it has a very chill feel, but it doesn't feel like anything like currently playing. And I was like, I don't think Quiet Life 2 did either, to be honest with you. But I was like, I think that goes back to me making the shit I like, and then it's gonna hit the people that feel the same as me, and then I'm gonna just rock with them hard body. But I think that was a driving force between just talking about my life experiences in my music. So I feel like that's I guess the truest form. Like, let me talk about some shit I know, which is what I've experienced, and hopefully it resonates with someone. And I think about myself, right? And uh, there are books that I've read only because I've heard Talib Kweli talk about them on Reflection Eternal, or you know what I mean, or on or a Black Star talk about something, and I know that he was raised by a college professor, and that he's an avid bibliophile that once owned a bookstore. So when he talked about these books, I was like, oh, I ran out to go read these, or because I heard a reference, and then that sparked something, and I was like, oh, I got to see what that is. And so like I feel like that's kind of like the job of the MC is like if it doesn't either resonate with someone or give them an opportunity to open their mind and expand, like he's just talking about a book that he read and he's referencing Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. I'm like, yo, I like Toni Morrison. I read her in school once. But I never read The Bluest Eye. Let me go read that.
Let me go
You
check.
know,
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
and I think that kind of is the thing that I like about hip hop. Is like I told you, like my mom side of the family is Puerto Rican, so colonialism has done a number on Puerto Ricans in terms of identifying with blackness. I think that's changed a lot in the last 20 years or so, especially with people being able to self-identify as Afro Latino or Afro Latina and acknowledging their indigenous African roots. But for the
Hmm.
long time, colonialism did a number on Puerto Ricans, and so I'm a product of that generation that really was like, I know Black Poppy, I'm Puerto Rican. The way we talk about Dominicans now, Puerto Ricans were very much on that wave back then. And so I kind of grew up, without my dad, who's black. So I didn't have a knowledge of self in terms of blackness or Pan Africanism or any of that until music, right? Until music came and gave me a knowledge of self, starting with, like Arrested Development and Black Star and A Tribe Called Quest. Then it something clicked. That was like, oh, I see myself reflected, and
Hmm.
I think that's why I like talking about uh, life experiences in music.
It's a relatable aspect that fill the void.
For sure, for sure.
You had trying to remember which project it was. I think it was Gorgeous Killer. Me First with
Tanya
Tiny.
Morgan.
Yes.
What about it? What about
It,
it?
it was
Talk to me.
I'm trying to remember the line.
Me like singers practice. Wait,
No,
me like singers
more.
practice in opera. I'm Frank Sinatra, one of the best to ever. This joint right here, huh? What
Oh,
you
look at that.
know? What you know about it? Shout out High Water Music, Susio Smash. Um, yeah, man. You know what's something
12
really
days.
crazy about this Gorgeous Killer album? Um, the artwork and layout was done by an artist named Naturel, who's also a dope MC. But Naturel went
Yes, I
on to be
remember.
a really dope artist. You know, who had galleries. You know, with Swiss Beats. He has so many basketball players with who have purchased his art, and he moved back to his family's native home. He's from Guam, and but you know he did so many cool things. But he this was his his idea, with the title to make like the wanted poster, and
Hmm.
the floorboards under the floorboards of the CD was like the passport and the
That's cool.
chains and the money and the different denominate. It's just ill little Easter egg, man. But you were talking about me first.
Yeah, there was a part when you mentioned the 12 gauge. I'm trying to remember for 30 days.
Yeah, 30 days of the calendar. Boy, you we going back to
Sorry.
2008, 2009. I don't, Homeboy Sandman will
12,
tell you
12
I'm
days every 30 days
no,
of the calendar.
notorious at remembering my raps. I'm notoriously terrible at recalling my raps. Um, but I'm trying to remember the line you're talking about too. You can't remember which line it was. I know the next line is
I
a
think it was
stoic poet.
12 gauge every 30 days of the calendar.
This is a deep dive, brother.
I'm gonna
This is
have to
a
go listen
deep
to it again.
dive. Oh yeah, you're gonna have to. I can't. I haven't listened to this album. Ooh, it maybe about a year and a half, 2 years. I feel like once a year, I have a nostalgic moment with this album. Um, do you know what my name was before Fresh Daily?
I don't think I remember that.
Yeah, that's a deep indie New York, like baby faced rapper going to every open mic. Shout out Deep from the Two Hungry Bros who's watching and texting me at the same time. uh, I used to go by the name Il
Old
Tarzan,
Tarzan. Yep. There you go.
and this was called Life Music. So just a little call back to what we are talking about. And I called it that. I called it Life Music because look at this. This is a mess. This is a terrible mess. But um, I called it that because yeah, I just wanted to talk about real life. And if you'll notice, there's the classic earth tone colored, but you'll notice I did the Pan African red, black, and green flag as
All
a
around there. Yep.
all around it. It was very important to me that my first album have that sort of
That's right. Il Tarzan.
crazy. But yeah, that this album, Gorgeous Killer, man, this was like my first debut full album under that moniker. And it kind of drove me crazy that this album uh I always in my head this was like the poor man's Illmatic just because, it was like produced by Ski Beats, DJ Spinna, Exile, Illmind, 88 Keys, Oh No, like Two Hungry Bros. Like for a relatively unknown local MC to have like
To have
that
those
level of
talented producers already.
come on, man. This album also has a very rare Cool Compete feature on there from Babbletron. Shout out Cool Compete. Um, that is a very elusive indie MC. If you know, you know. And I always that was always a big feather in my cap. Shout out Cool Compete for lacing a verse. I really just hit him up on the humble, like, yo, this dude on your label made the beat. Would you be down? That was my hook. I was like, Don and Links, he's on Embedded too. Maybe you would want to jump on this beat. He didn't know me from a can of paint, but he sent me back a scorcher of a verse too, just on a love. So yeah, that was always something really uh, meaningful to me. But yeah, I always wished to kind of like I got a chance to tour this album, and I wished that this album was more successful or bigger than it was
Mhm.
until, like I said, I listened to it like a year ago, and I was like, this thing is all over the place. Like I feel like now, like my A&R ears are like, it's not trash. It's not a bad album, but this is a schizophrenic, like beats all over the place, kind of like a very loose theme. The title "Gorgeous Killer" is a reference to Pusha T's verse on "What Happened to That Boy," which me and my boy Jason were huge Pusha T fans. Just he would just say the most crazy, disrespectful shit, and yeah, like he had this line. What was the line on there? Uh, I'm a gorgeous killer. I put that on my lord. My niece was 4 when she felt chinchilla. And my boy Jason would always joke around and call me gorgeous killer based on that line. I was like, I'm gonna turn that into an album. And gorgeous
It
killer.
is.
I've never killed anybody, except for in a Kendrick Lamar video. But yeah.
And Gorgeous Killer was also one of the early um, High Water releases
Hmm.
because I think they were out maybe a few years at this time.
Yeah, I think they had a group called Sputnik Brown was the first release on High
I
Water.
remember that.
Sputnik
It,
Brown. I
it
don't
was
know if
a
they're still
7-inch
around, but
vinyl.
yeah, Sputnik Brown. And when this came out, this wasn't a P&D with High Water. This I was the first like signed artist on High Water, and so it was kind of like a lot of my early lessons of making music and putting out a commercial release, what to do, what not to do, what kind of what to expect, all kind of happened in real life via the parachute method of being pushed out the plane and thrown a parachute afterward. Um, and it was also like a really weird. I've always had like really terrible timing when it came to music. Right as this dropped, um, like Fat Beats was like celebrating their closing like shortly after this drop. So there was plans for a vinyl release for this,
Hmm.
but then Fat Beats closed down their brick and mortar in New York, which was an institution. The album release for this CD actually was in Fat Beats and was amazing. Um, but before I could ever see my vinyl on the walls of Fat Beats closed, and that broke my heart. But yeah, man, this was the one that kind of jumped it off, man. This was the one.
Yeah, I remember going that last week that they were open. Tried to go there almost every day to see everybody that was out there performing.
Yeah, it was a family reunion out
Hmm.
that, yo. There was so many dope artists. Oh, that breaks my heart to think about it now.
And this Thursday, if I remember correctly, you're going to be doing a screening of the documentary.
Oh, there's a Fat Beats documentary.
Yeah,
Oh wow, that's in New York.
yep. It's going to be at
Wow,
the Lincoln Center.
wow. Are you going to that?
I don't think I'll be able to make that.
Oh, okay. But shout out Fat Beats, man. New York institution and arguably one of the biggest P&D press and distribute companies for independent hip hop. Started in New York and now on the West Coast.
So, being that you had to affiliate with High Water Music, How long have you known Seuss, or back then Susio Smash?
For a while, man. Like I want to say 2007, 2008. After he took over for Bobito, um, at the radio station,
Yeah,
and
Tim C.
yeah, with him and Tim
Yeah.
and Tap. Shout out them and Laura Sear sometime too. Um, I tried to come up there many a time and got rebuffed by a one Susio Smash. Um, and I still would find my way in, whether it was like with Two Hungry Bros, whether it was with this Indie MC Access Immortal, got invited up there. There's just a couple of guys. Anytime I knew that one of my peers got invited up there, I would beg to tag along. And so, for those that don't know, Squeeze Radio happened very late at night. I don't remember what day of the week or when it was, but it happened late at night, and it was up at Columbia. So Columbia is all the way uptown, and yeah, I mean, by the time that let out, it was probably like 2 in the morning, if not
Yeah.
later, and the
I think
trains were.
I
Was
think
you
it
going to
was
say
still.
something?
I was gonna say I think it was still on Thursday nights.
I believe it. You have to believe you're right.
Yeah.
And it was in like a tiny little room up in Columbia's student college radio station, and they kept it rocking up there. They kept Bobito and Stretch's show rocking for a good long time after that. And I would try. I'm like, yo, what's up? Let me in. And apparently, this was also the age of gatekeeping. This is the age, and hip hop doesn't have gatekeeping anymore with the advent of the internet age and social media. Anything kind of goes. There's no real person at the drawbridge saying, okay, you're dope. Come on in.
Hmm.
Step your bars up, son. Keep working, and then come back later. There's nobody doing that anymore. Everybody, you're whack. You're good. You're working on it. Like the internet um, rewards people with good metrics, and metrics can be made in a plethora of ways. If you're a lady, you can show some skin, and your metrics go up. If you're a guy, you can do pranks in the street, and your metrics and your likes and your followers can go up, and then you can parlay that into high metrics. But now with music, um, you know, somebody does like one dope song and it goes viral, and they're ready to give the trophy before they've run the marathon. So you'll go to a live show of this person that has 125,000 followers on social media. You go to a live show, and the live show is ass because this person has never played a chitlin circuit. They've never done spot dates. They've never had to open up for anyone on tour. They just have a shit ton of followers and a viral hit song, and the opportunities are coming, and they're taking a check. Um, but I say that to say, back then there was there was these cultural gatekeepers, especially in New York, which is the birthplace of this culture that we love, that we're talking about here, right? A lot of people. There were a lot of gatekeepers of the culture, and Seuss was one of those people. Susio was definitely a gatekeeper, definitely a hater, definitely you better be dope. And I was like, I am dope, and he lost it. But if you ask him about this, I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I hand illustrated with marker and pen and pencil a mixtape of like what I thought were my best, absolute best songs, and I custom made this for him. And I wrote a
Oh.
handwritten note on the inside like, "Yo, play these joints. They're gonna go crazy." And I drew a picture of him, and I drew a picture of me on there. It was a super ill cover, and I'm so mad he lost it. Um, but he remembered, and I would sneak up there all the time, and I think I invited him to my birthday party. I was turning, I think it was my 27th. Yeah, actually, so I've known him before 2007 because he came to my 27th birthday party, right? So that means I've known him since like 2006. Came to my 27th birthday party, and I did a live performance at this club that doesn't exist. It was a restaurant slash club called China One in the Lower East Side. and they had a basement that looked like an opium den. It had like huge fish tanks, and it had a
Hmm.
DJ booth, and it was ill. And I had this place on tilt. And I remember him looking at him and him just like nodding at me, and I was like, got him, got him. And sure enough, I got the invite to come up to the station, and he took me a little more serious, and he ended up signing me. Um, and at the time, I was just so hype, what I mean? Because I was like, finally, one of the gatekeepers, acknowledged me and all that, and I was so hype. Um, but at the time, I was so hype. But if I would have had foresight, that show got canceled. He didn't have the radios. Like maybe about a year or two or into me signing, they lost the radio show. So a lot of the leverage that I feel like Susio had, um, that show meant a lot to indie hip hop,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and I think on some level, Seuss definitely knew that and definitely held a lot of favors with a lot of people. A lot of people owed Seuss a lot of favors because that show could really help boost you if you made it onto that show. And so I think a lot of people owed him favors, and I think he was banking on running this label and getting these artists and these things that the label would need. I
Hmm.
think he was banking on being able to skip ahead of the line because so many influential people definitely owed Seuss favors. But once he lost that show, people's memories I feel like got a little short. Um, so again, it's my luck, this is my luck. I finally put out a record. Fat Beats closes. I get signed to like this new upcoming New York City indie hip hop label that's based around like one of the dopest indie hip hop shows, and the show gets pulled. And it really was like the students at Columbia that were like, "We want our show back. We want our radio station back. You guys are not students here." And
Oh, okay.
I think that literally was it. What I mean, there
Hmm.
was probably some other politics around
Politics,
that,
I'm sure.
but yeah, just the timing. These things
Yeah,
take time.
it's amazing. And you know, to carry on the tradition of Stretch and Bob onto that, big shoes, man, big
Big
shoes.
shoes, big shoes. I think he did well without doing what they did. I think he did the next iteration of it really well, and I saw a ton of people up there. I met a ton of people up there. I met Evil D, built a relationship with Evil D. I met Jean Grey there. I met so many dope. Even Parental now, who was a producer from France. He'll see like somebody like a Pharaoh Monch comment on my Instagram. He's like, "Yo, Pharaoh Monch commented," and I was like, "Yeah, that's the homie." I've met him a few times, and we chopped it up. He's like, "That's so cool," But that's all through Squeeze Radio.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. And we had so many underground radio shows back then to as that other outlet. And with the way technology is now, it's great that it's evolved that DJs are still capable of still being able to do what the radio shows did back then.
Hmm.
Because I listen to a lot of them on Twitch, and it's been a great outlet, for them to still showcase all of the independent hip hop that's still coming out.
Yeah, I'll be really frank and say I'm not as tapped in. I think in my time, my hiatus time, um, I became really insular. Like I became really insular and really kind of just turned inward. And then the pandemic happened in the middle of that. And I do remember like DJs couldn't DJ parties anymore because everything was locked down, and they were on Twitch and
Mm-hmm.
doing like DJ sets on Twitch or parties and inviting people to parties on Twitch, and you would have like a Cash App donation or something. Those
Yeah.
things were the most depressing thing to me. And I know that they were like a lifeblood for DJs, but they made me so fucking sad. They depressed me so bad. I couldn't I couldn't. I was like, yeah, I'm good on all of these. I did watch a couple of verses. I thought there was some verses performances that were like definitely like the Jill. I remember me and my wife just smoking some weed and watching the Jill Scott versus Erica Badu one, and there was a couple of verses that were really good. But
Yeah, some of
that
them were
that
good.
that whole that whole era of DJs doing sets and parties online turned me off so bad and depressed me so bad. I think we were just all isolated and siloed from each other and looking for something. But that I knew for a fact that that wasn't it for me, and that just pushed me further. But what it did do was it made me go down rabbit holes on Apple Music for like if you like this artist, check out this artist, and
Hmm.
so that's kind
Okay.
of where I found a lot of. And my wife is a rap nerd. I think almost all of the new rap music that I found found through her because otherwise I get locked in my box of like this is what I like and it's all I'll listen to Supreme Clientele 17 times in a row if you let me, you know.
That's dope, man. You know, that's one thing that I love to do. I love to go and dig, and I still use SoundCloud the same way I did like about over a decade ago, and still find new music and new artists.
I think that's how we're here is because you really love this shit and you really love like independent hip hop, indie hip hop, underground hip hop. Like I mean, I've seen you post stuff on other artists stuff, and I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, he loves this shit. He's tapped in. He really like. There's the backpacker in me, like that was going to every show at like
Uh-huh.
Puerto Rican, is like, yeah, I remember that feeling before the world turned me grizzly and cold. I was just so excited for like, yo, who's that? You know, and I feel like we need that, yo. Like the internet is kind of, I don't know, made things more accessible, but in a way that it's flooded and you kind of, I always joke that you kind of like have to wade through so much sewage, like
Just to
waist high,
get that diamond in
just
the
to
rough.
get one diamond, that
Yep.
one. But when you find it, oh, I'm like, this guy's, and my wife is real good at like playing some shit, and I'll come peeking out of the kitchen of the, yo, who's this? Yo, who's somebody spitting? Who's this? And I haven't been able to really do that for her, maybe except for like one or two artists,
Hmm.
and she liked them because as much as she puts me on, she's picky too. So maybe one or two artists I've been able to put her onto, you know what I mean? She ends up putting me onto, but where I have been able to put her on, believe it or not, is R&B, and that's like my feather in the cap. I'm like, yeah, but what you know about this? So that's been dope for me.
That's great. You also, as you said, are a graphic designer and illustrator.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
is that what your full time job?
Um, yes and no.
Hmm.
So, my title is kind of nebulous at my job. So I work for a labor union as a communications specialist, and it's kind of an all-encompassing position in the sense that, um, yes, I do some design work, but I also write newsletter articles. I also do social media posts. I also take photos at rallies. I also do T-shirts for rallies or membership or all the tchotchkes that a labor union would have, like buttons that show solidarity. And so like the labor world and unions are really important, especially now. And so, I'm really proud of the work that I do there for working families, making sure that we hold, corporations and managements and managers and bosses accountable for their workers' rights. But so yeah, like not all of the work that I do is graphic design or illustration. Some of it is kind of boring writing stuff, like writing sort of not news reports, but like press releases and dealing with news outlets and stuff like that as a communication specialist. But I'm very lucky that I work on a team of like six communication specialists, and like my specialist skill, if we're the X-Men, I'm Iceman, you know what I mean? So like a lot of the design and layout work goes to me. And then like we have another member of my team whose strength is like writing, so he does like a lot of press releases, so on and so forth. And then someone else is really good at like videography, so like when we need, Facebook ads or whatever, he films that. So we have like a team of specialists, and that'll be like my area of expertise is graphic design and layout.
Cool, cool. Are any of your projects your own label of work, like the covers?
Almost all of them, brother. Almost all of them. Um, yeah. I want to say I'm trying to think. I mean, with the exception of Gorgeous Killer, which was Naturel, um, and that was the first time I was comfortable enough to hand over my music to another illustrator, because there's an interesting process that happens if you make music, and if you can make audio and visual, right? Usually those two things can sync up in your mind. You don't have to hand off part of it to someone else. Like as the person creating the audio, I have agency over what I think it should look like, but I also have the talent and skill to then translate it, right? Most of the time, an artist who is a music artist but not a visual artist has to trust that someone else will get their vision and manifest it visually for them. So in a lot of ways, I get to cut out the middleman because I have the idea for what I want to do and I know how to execute it. So yeah, so like the Quiet Life 2, almost all of them. Yeah, I was just about to say that, that's me. I did that. And if you got the vinyl for Quiet Life too, it came with this zine. I don't know if you got this, but I did the design and layout for this. Like it had a lot of behind the scenes. There goes Seuss right there, Quelle Chris, and like the recording sessions and all the layout and design was all me. And then if you were able to get a copy of this zine, in the back there was a QR code that had all the bonus songs that Seuss cut from the album and said it was too long, so he cut them. But I was like, these are dope and they need life. And so I put them there. I put them there as like a placeholder and as like a reward to people for like supporting the vinyl, and they
Hmm.
got this. But I do want those songs like on streaming, and I just gotta figure out a way that I can put them out and soon. I like doing things right, not right now. You know what I mean? So
So, what was cut was spawned the Quiet Life. Also, is that what's on those tracks?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Essentially, there's a couple of songs that are not on the Quiet Life. Also, if you bought this, they're in here. So I made sure to really kind of reward the people that bought the vinyl to get this, and you bought the vinyl. You got. I'm big into like print media. Our office is kind of a hectic mess right now, but we have a floor to ceiling bookcase. Both my wife and I are just avid bibliophiles and maximalists. We collect books, magazines, records. We're in the process of swapping our office into our bedroom and turning our bedroom into our daughter's room. And we're
Oh,
just
okay.
like, oh my God, we've got so many things. Like we have to get rid of some stuff, and this is kind of be a real labor of love swapping these rooms because we're just both maximalists. She's also an illustrator and collector of things and super dope. But yeah, the Quiet Life also um, is where this QR code will take you, um, plus more. You know what I mean? But I love this idea for zines, and I'm in the process of working on one right now for these things take time. Um, that will also have a QR code to a bonus track. It won't have a whole bunch of songs like this did,
Mhm.
but because it won't have a whole bunch of songs, I think what I'm gonna do for this zine is, do you remember flexi discs?
Yes.
It's like a thin vinyl that would
Hmm.
come as an insert with like a magazine or something. I think I'm gonna put this the bonus track on flexi disc, which is
Okay.
just another dope thing to collect. That's what I like doing, man. Like
There's a few back there.
I see. Yeah, you pulled out the cassette, so I already know what time you're on. You know what I mean? I can't show it now, but like my cassette game is crazy. Is like I got a chunk of them here. Like um, this is there's way more than this. I can keep pulling out fistful after fistful of
I
cassettes.
believe it.
Um, and I still have most of my CDs as well, um, although I got rid of my main CD player. I have a smaller CD player from Japan now that I really like. I just wanna mount it to the wall when we switch rooms. But I don't know if you ever seen this thing.
No, what's that?
So this is a CD player. I had to order it on Japanese Amazon, Amazon.jp, because like you can't get it in the States, so that was my workaround. But yeah, you just put the CD in there, and I think the way they got me, the way I was suckered into being like, "Ooh, that's dope," is I believe you can kind of like slide the insert in of the CD like into the um into the case. I haven't done this in a while. I haven't listened to the CD in a while, but yeah, basically you can kind of hook it up so that whatever the cover of it is, what I mean, is in there, and there's like an LED that'll pop up. It's not on. I haven't charged it in a while, but like it'll be spinning and it'll have which number you want, and it's like a cool like
Nice.
wall mounted thing that'll play a CD.
Oh, nice. Even better. Yep.
Yeah,
Now I see why you have it.
yeah, because there's no way I'm gonna buy like a CD player. But believe it or not, somebody left a boombox or a multiple CD changer uh, system, and I picked it up. I was like, I'm gonna take this home, and it works. I'm just like, it's just like another thing in the house now. Like,
Don't
and
feel bad.
I thought you might get a kick out of that because I know you are a collector and a purveyor of musical goods.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate seeing that. I might have to go look into that.
An archivist of
Yeah,
the culture.
definitely. I still have a 12 disc changer in my car that I actually, it was from my 92 Explorer, but when I got in an accident in 90, what was it? No, it was like early 2000s. They told me I had to total the car. I had a whole system and everything in there. So I took the speaker box out, my door speakers, and the 12 disc changer. And when I got another car, I had to install in.
Yep. If you're a person of a certain age, you remember that. Let me ask you a question then. You have the binder with the CDs? Because there's a certain type of old head that got the binder still with the CDs in them, and what I mean, to keep it in the car. My car got stolen here in Oakland, and I'm so sad that I had the binder because this one was like a four CD changer in the car.
Oh
My
man,
new car doesn't even play CDs because new cars don't even come with
nothing
CDs
at all.
no
Yeah,
more.
you know.
My car was old and you had to put the key in to turn. Now everything is push to start. But they took my binder, bro. I had some joints in that thing that are never coming out on CD again, man. I had like a Sarah sampler tape, CD
That's the
rather, excuse me.
you know what?
Mixtapes that are just, they're not on streaming. This
No,
is, I bought this off a dude for $10. Like, but it was the most fire thing, I might have had Gorilla Nem's first mixtape,
Wow.
uh, on in that CD change. Ugh, heartbreaking.
Wow. See, I had a similar story like that. I went to college down in Miami, and then one year we were all hanging out in South Beach, and I drove my car out there. Somebody broke into my car. They took one of my binders, which had, and I still remember this to this day, Company Flow CD in there. Um, my pool stick,
Trauma.
my pool stick was in the trunk. They took that too. And then like I had some hip hop magazines back then. I forgot which one it was. It might have been Stress magazine, if I remember correctly.
Stress. Stress. Oh man, did you collect rap magazines too?
For a minute, I did. Yeah.
For a minute, yo. There was like, do you remember Elemental?
Oh yes, yes.
It was like, Mike. Let me tell you, as a like a young, indie New York rapper, I would have killed to be an Elemental at one point, man. I remember I used to mail them CDs like, yo, check me out, check me out. Oh man, I miss that era, yo. I miss that era. I think things are obviously more convenient now, but everything in its time, man. These things take time.
Yep. And I love how that title has coincided with almost everything that we spoke about during this interview. Um, so let's get into how you met Parental.
Um, there is a certain subset of, I toured Europe twice, 2012, 2013, Madrid, Barcelona, Frankfurt, London, Budapest, Brussels, Berlin. Um, some of the best experiences in this hip hop thing I've had. But there's a certain subset of European DJ and hip hopper that really just is kind of frozen in the 90s boom bap sound. They just love that over there.
Hmm.
Or rather not frozen, but has a deep appreciation for that, like that post Dilla, um, that just that great good, as my boy Black Spade would say, that good vibe sound of like samples and dope beats. And no matter how long, no matter how long of a hiatus I took, there's a subset of hip hop fan out there that's still always tapped in with me because that's the kind of hip hop that I made.
Yeah.
And so, every now and then on social media, like some producer will hit me up and be like, hello from Poland, or hello from wherever I make the hip hop beat, and they'll hit me up in broken English trying to collab or something, and like 3 to 4 out of 5 times the beats are snoozy worthy. They're like, it's not it, just very like quantized drums and just like, or just very just basic, and that's no slight to them. It's just there's a sound that they just haven't gotten past. You know what I'm saying? And some of this shit is dope, but a lot of it just, you know I don't. I started an event series for producers and beat makers, um, called Beat House, and I'm just so spoiled for beats. I give thanks because in doing this, I met so many dope producers and that make beats that I really like. So when someone from a foreign country hits me up with beats, I listen to everything, by the way. If anyone's watching this, freshDotDaily@gmail.com. I listen to everything. Because you never know who got that one joint, right? So I tell people all the time, like, I listen. And so he kind of cold called me in that fashion of like overseas producers from Europe that make like jazzy boom bap shit. And I was like, okay, here's another one. I kind of hit him with that energy at first because I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. But the beats he sent me were that like 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 kind of producers that like, wait, they got some shit in, it's some shit in here. And so the first batch he sent me was cool. It was cool. There was a couple of joints in there that I was like, oh, that one and that one and that one. The rest of these are, oh, these are all right. These are a little. Some of these are a little too sleepy for me. But and this one are crazy. But in that when he sent that, I was still a little on hiatus. I think I might have just put this out. And so I was just getting my feet back wet after almost 9 years of not putting out music consistently. And Quiet Life 2 has half of Quiet Life 2 was written between 2015 and like 2017, right? And then once I got here, I needed to live some more life on the West Coast. So I was just like taking my time, right? For lack of a better phrase, it's taking my time. So when he sent it, I was like, these are dope, but like I didn't have a studio to record out of yet. And it was also like kind of post-pandemic, like the world's getting back to normal.
Yeah.
So he sent them and I agreed to do something to him. I kind of dropped the ball. So he spun the block like a year later, like, hey, I know we said we're gonna work on stuff. Um, but yeah, I think I gave some of those beats to this rapper named A1. I don't know if you know A1. He had a documentary on
Yep.
Netflix about him and his producer living in separate places. But anyway, he's super dope MC who I actually found out is from the same housing projects as me.
Yep. I've interviewed him.
Uh yeah, A1 is dope, man. He's dope, and we're scarily alike in a lot of ways. But he was like, I'm doing a project with A1. Would you be down to give me a verse? And I was like, I felt so guilty. I was like, of course, I got you. Say no, say less. But my thing now is, after taking time off, I understand that, you know, um, high school is 4 years, college is 4 years. That's 8 years combined. Think about all the music you found in high school, all the music you found in college. That's 8 years. That's a lot of music.
Yeah.
That amount of time is the time that influences your taste in music and specifically hip hop. I took 9 years off. So for all intents and purposes, I'm a new artist to a lot of people. Um, the ones that were in the blog era, remember. The ones that were in the indie hip hop, like New York era, remember. Shout out to those people. I forever love those people. But for a lot of people, for all intents and purposes, I'm a new artist. So I understand, like, I can't charge what I would charge in 2011 or 2012.
Yeah.
But I said, yo, um, can you cover the studio time? Cover the studio time, and I'll do it.
Hmm.
And he was like, okay. He agreed to it. To me, that's the mark of someone who's like respects your time and is willing to work with you.
Absolutely.
Is if at the very least, can you cover the studio time? Right? Because I'm not one of these rappers that has a home setup. I hate recording myself. I tried it in the pandemic, just wasn't for me. I need to go to the studio. I need to work with an engineer. I need to have something to go home with that sounds listenable, not something that sounds like ass. So I need the engineer to give me a rough mix, all that. And he said yes. So because he said yes, I told myself, you're gonna write this, you're gonna get it done. The path is open. The studio's paid for. All you have to do is write this shit and record it. He just so happened to send me a batch with that beat for the collab, and it was like, oh, and by the way, these are the beats that are open that I did this year. That second batch, that second batch had a crack in it. That second batch, that was the one. And I know you know this album, Pete Rock, Peach Instrumentals, Volume One. When that dropped, I want to say 2001, right? Pete Rock on
Yeah. I think
BBE
it was.
with
Yeah.
Peach Instrumentals. When that album came out, I was 21 years old. I just moved out of my mom's crib maybe a year or two earlier. When that album hit, it just encapsulated like how I felt about music in my taste, and I just loved Pete Rock, Pete Instrumentals Volume One. By the way, it was the first time I heard Rock Marciano was on that album too with the UN.
Oh, okay. So,
And Pete Rock's Pete Instrumentals. I mean, outside of Dilla shit, because believe it or not, I wasn't up on Dilla like that in 2001. I had just found out about Slum Village, maybe around that time. So I knew of Dilla because of all the stuff he produced, but to me, it was Pete Rock, Pete, you know what I mean?
hmm.
And this batch of beats that Parental gave me took me right back. It like transported me when I put the headphones on and listened to this batch, it took me right back to Pete Rock P instrumentals, and the songs started pouring one after the other. The 9 years of life and living and just being in a new coast and everything, just like all of it just started pouring out of me to these beats. Now, these beats arguably are very jazzy, are very quantized drums. They do have that throwback sound, but there's a warmth to them. There's a sort of like home feeling to them. And because they were so quantized, one of the first people I played this project for was Donwell. He came here for to DJ a comedy show, and we're driving around, we're hanging out. I said, yo, I want you to listen to this and let me know what you think. And he said, because these beats were so boom bap, so like quantized, so like almost 90s feeling, he was like, you're a dope rapper, and you always had great beat selection, in my opinion. But because these were so open, you're doing things I haven't heard you do. You're playing with flows. You're really going off, and that kind of Don Will saying that he didn't know that. Shout out to Don Will if he sees this, of Tanya Morgan. Because he said that, I knew I had something. Um, I knew I had something, and so I told Parental I'll do the verse for A1 to join with A1. What I didn't tell him is, um, I did like 5 joints off that night. So I gave him the verse. I was like, oh, he's like, how'd the verse come out? I said, yeah, here it goes. Let me know what you think of it. He's like, oh, this is fire. You went off. And I was like, yeah, I think I might have one more for you. Check this one out. He was like, I don't remember what was the first 5 songs, so I'm sorry, but he's like, I like this. And I was like, "You like that? Yeah, I got another one for you." He was like, "Yo." So I was like, "Let me stop playing with him." I just sent him all 5 of them. He was like, "Yo, would you be down to do a project like these are heat?" And he was really excited. And that put the battery in my back. And I said, "Listen, you pay for the studio time, I'll make it happen." You know what I mean? And so um, I think he paid for like I finished this album in like 6 studio sessions, but what I did was I booked the studio sessions from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I was in there for 6 hours straight shifts. So within 6 of these sessions, from 1 to 7, I finished the project over the course of like I think I started it in 2023. Um, So that means he reached out to me. He reached out to me in 2022. By 2023, I had already started. He had spun the block on me and sent me that second batch. And for all of 2023, uh, I stretched it out because I needed to write them, and really, John Robinson sent the verse and A1 sent the verse. So again, these things take time to make happen. I think one of the hardest parts of working on an album is waiting for guest verses to come back and stuff like that. And Kelly Moonstone also crazy snapped on this, but just waiting for the guest verse and stuff. It took about like a year and some change. But when it was all said and done, we got scratches, we got verses, we got choruses, and my boy Gavin. I really want to shout out my boy Gavin. Gavin got his Bobby McFerrin on and put all the paint where it ain't. I used him really strategically. I utilized him. He always has great ideas for melodies. He's also a dope MC, which I really want people to hear more from him. But my boy Gavin Grant, um, he's a sculptor. He's just a local Oakland dude that I met when I first moved out here. He's the kind of MC that always wants to cipher with you, and it's kind of like hard to like grab him and say put him in the studio because he's just so free. But he also has great melodies, and so throughout this project, he harmonizes and puts things underneath the vocals in a way that I've never done before. So
Hmm. That's
yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
look
how we
him.
put it together. He doesn't really have any music out. He might have one song out, but
Mhm.
he's just one of those guys that just a local dude that I'm like, man, if the
Talent.
world, yeah, I'll send you a song of his for sure. And I was like, man, he's one of the MCs that like the way you get excited about indie music is how I used to be in my teens, in my early 20s when I heard somebody new that I liked. I was like, I gotta get this. I'm like, man, if I would have found Gavin in my teens and early 20s, this guy might have been like my favorite rapper. You know what I mean? So I'm really
Means
excited
a
to
lot.
like, yeah, if I can use my platform to for the world to hear more of Gavin's music, I think his Instagram might be Featherload Music or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, but I didn't utilize him for his raps. I utilized him because for his brain for coming up with these harmony. I just heard him harmonizing and creating melodies in his house, and I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy to do the thing for the thing, you know? And yeah, that's how this shit came about, man.
Wow. Shout out Gavin.
Yeah, shout
And
out to Gavin. Shout out to Parental for like, there's a certain amount of like humbling yourself that it takes to reach out to someone you don't know and say, "Hey, I create and I would like to create with you." And in 2025, where everyone's egos are rampant and or everyone's trying to make a buck off people, a lot of producers hit me up like under the guise of collaboration,
mhm.
but the real thing is like I'm selling beats. I would love to work with you. Oh, you would? Okay. Now I'm really hesitant too, which is how I kind of treated Parental at first. But that's like the new hustle is, especially for European producers, is like to hit people up and be like, I have beats for you. And you're like, oh, word. And then the reveal is, and they're $600 a piece, which is actually a good
Mhm.
price for beats. I don't have a thing against paying for beats. Let me put that out there. I've paid for beats. I think you should pay for beats. There's another conversation to be had about paying for beats with samples because that person did not pay to chop that sample. That's a
Mm.
controversial, spicy take, but I believe in
Absolutely.
paying for beats. But yeah, no, Parental just reached out with no artifice of like collaboration. He really did want to make something, and he provided a lane. He followed up his words with his wallet and his platform, and I'm super grateful for it because that shit got me outside.
That's great. Yeah, I probably discovered parental through, I would say, either Pete Flux or maybe Horror City.
Mm,
It was definitely one of those two.
you're deep in the crates. You're deep in the crates, bro.
And I
I'm
got it.
impressed. I'm impressed because you're deep in the crates, like you know what I mean. Like obviously, I've seen you talk on stuff and seen you
Mhm.
in under comments and stuff, and I'm like, he's deep. You love this shit for real, for
Man,
real.
I appreciate that. And it is true, I have that same love like I did as a teenager, as a child. And once again, a blessing to the elders, the music that they played. My uncle that got me into DJing, I always give them their flowers because that that feeling of what music does to you, and to have people open those doors to other genres. And here I am. I have two sons. My sons listen to Billie Holiday, Tribe Called Quest, um, System of the Down, Black
Hmm.
Sabbath, you know, and
You raised them right.
and the thing is, I didn't. It's not that I just exposed them to that. Part of it, because of certain music that they listen to, they end up gravitating to other music that open their palette. So I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I think you did them a great service by widening their palette with music. I think some of society's greatest people are the ones who have, impeccable music taste or a wide music taste. There's something to be said for you meet somebody and you ask them what kind of music you listen to, and they go, everything. You're like, what's your favorite? Oh, I like everything. Not those people. There are people, I'm
Hmm.
talking about the connoisseurs, you know what I mean? and the connoisseurs who have impeccable taste and who still get excited to dig through a lot of muck, but they dig and they know and they can find a kernel and they can reference it, and that's a skill. That's a skill, and it's like a lost art, and it's like it's exactly what people, artists like myself that are indie, really need and rely on. So I appreciate you and I appreciate your platform.
Absolutely. One of my friends, he makes a joke about me. He said, Ian is he always he could find a person that lives in Montana in the mountains that's dope as hell.
What did KRS One say? A dope MC is a dope MC.
Yep, absolutely. You brought up Don Will before. I gotta give Don Will a big shout out because email newsletters
Oh man,
are amazing. And that is
I
a
find
key
new
thing to
music
do.
through Don Will
Yep.
too. Through his newsletter. I be fine. I'm like, yeah, let me listen to this, man. People don't understand how important that is. How important that is because someone like me, I'm not going to necessarily subscribe to a playlist. I'm not going to listen to uh, a lot of radio shows. It sucks because I'm on a radio show now, an interview, which is like this is exactly the type of shit I like. So maybe this is the sign to like tap in more to radio shows, especially indie radio shows. But like just my schedule, it's just not gonna happen. But Don Will's newsletter is something that at a glance I'm gonna open, I'm gonna check out because it's coming from a credible source.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm gonna be like, and it's also not always just hip hop. He's gonna put different things in there. So if you
Hmm.
haven't subscribed to his newsletter, that's probably a
Please
good
do.
thing to do.
Yep.
You'll find some. I guarantee you, Fresh Daily, you'll find some shit. You will find some shit in there.
That is so true. Yep. Big shout out to Don Will. And wow, what else? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah,
For this, our first interview, and
hell yeah,
again, these things take time.
yes.
It's out now.
Please
Vinyl is
get
still
that. Please get
available.
that. Yes, please get that.
HHV. Let
If
me
you
put that.
cannot, yeah, if you cannot afford the vinyl, you can't afford to buy it off the Bandcamp, which are um, my two preferred ways for you to support. Obviously, I want you to hold, as a collector, a collector of culture and things. I want you to be able to hold it in your hand. Also the artwork for it is sick. I made it, but so I'm biased, but the artwork is sick. Like if you're somebody that likes displaying vinyl records in your home, it's just going to be one of the things that looks dope on the wall, looks dope on your collection, looks dope displayed, and like physical media is I feel is really important, um that's number one reason I want somebody who loves my music to be able to own a physical thing
Yes.
in an era of AI where you can't tell if shit is real, in an era of AI where art is artificially made, to be able to hold something in your hand, something tangible that is art, you know what I mean? Both visual and audio is super important. And so when you purchase it from HHV, what that also does to HHV is it tells them that people still care about physical media and they care about buying Fresh Daily music. So yes, please by all means do that. But if you can't afford that, there's Bandcamp, which will the proceeds go, directly to Parental and I. And then the last tier is if you do not have it, which very often in my life I didn't have it, so I understand. Stream it on wherever you stream music because that's what the game is now. You know what I mean? I think in a week or 10 days of it coming out, we're at 70,000 streams, which is probably the largest opening week I've ever had for an
Very
album,
good.
which means people are resonating. Like I was saying, um, and to me, that's really special because I don't think this shit sound like nothing else that's really out right now. So that's a good thing. That's a bad thing. I don't know, but people are listening to it, and that makes me happy. Um, you know, it's a personal project, but it's also just some dope hip hop for you to enjoy, yo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say this. You know, it's a blessing to own your own music and not be controlled by these DSPs. So if you do get it on Bandcamp, please download it. Have your own copy, the same way as
Mm,
it was a physical.
mm, hell yes, hell yes. And you know, do that for sure. Um, and because the beautiful thing is, you know, if you don't purchase an album, I think Bandcamp, I think for this release, it'll only let you play it about 3 times if you don't have a streaming platform. So, but if you have the Bandcamp app, it acts as a streaming platform in the sense that if you've bought an album, you forever
Hmm.
have access to it and you can listen to it on the Bandcamp app. And so those Bandcamp sales and the physical sales mean all the world to me as an artist that still pays for studio time. So if you want me to keep making more music, I think that's the best way to support it. And like I said, you know, HHV only sent me a very limited amount of physical copies. They sent, I think, less than 50. I'll put it to you like that. And so what I want to do with the copies that I have, the physical copies, I'm gonna obviously save some for some live shows that I've got coming up, but
Hmm.
I want to do a deluxe version that has the zine, right? That has the flexi disc, maybe some stickers, maybe a t-shirt. So when that package goes up, you know, um, you can get that as well.
There it is. I have just two more questions, and maybe we could watch the video before we end this interview.
Hell
One
yeah.
question is, how was your transition from being a Brooklyn kid moving to Oakland?
I was kind of waiting for that question actually. Yo, you know, I'm Captain Brooklyn, bro. I was raised in Fort Greene projects, Fort Greene housing projects. Shout out Fort Greene. And then when I left that there from my coming of age into my adulthood, I lived in Bed-Stuy. So between Fort Greene and Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn is informed so much of who I am as a person and artist. And so Oakland, you know, I think New Yorkers and East Coasters in general have a misconception about the West Coast. They think when you think the West Coast, you think automatically think LA, you know what I'm saying? And California is not like New York. It's an entire coast. It goes from the top to the bottom. So that's like, you know, going from Maine to like Florida, you know what I'm saying, as one state as opposed to New York, this tiny state.
Hmm.
Um, so, for example, for me to drive to Los Angeles is 6 hours. That's like driving to Virginia. You know what I'm saying? So, obviously, LA and Oakland are very different, which is something that always breaks East Coast people' mind. But the Bay Area is nothing like Los Angeles. It's almost like an East Coast city on the West Coast in a lot of ways.
Oh, okay.
Uh, it really is. You know what I mean? Just from the energy of the people, it is gentrified like how New York is now, but there's still a strong presence and spirit of Black people and social justice here and a whole bunch of that stuff and music. And the Bay Area's music, they're very protective of it because they have a very specific sound. They're very protective of their music and sound and culture. And so when I got here, it was really important for me as somebody who's had an event series for more than a decade to not just come here and be a gentrifier and just plant my flag and say, yeah, I'm Fresh Daily, and yeah, I have Beat House, yeah, I have this, I have that, and immediately plug in and start doing my own thing. It was really important for me to come here and check the culture and go to shows, go to art shows, go to museums, go to whatever the culture was here and support it and pay whatever the door admission was and show my face and say, hey, what up? I'm new in town, you know what I mean? And when I got here, I was received with love. You know what I'm saying? Some people knew who I was already. Some
Hmm.
people were familiar with my music, which was always a shock to me after taking some time off. But I think I think the hardest transition was like unlearning some of my New York habits I'm not in New York, so they don't serve me anymore. You know, a lot of our old, you know, I was born in 1980, so that should tell you how old I am right there. Um, but some of our New York habits are actually trauma responses. Some of our New Yorkisms are actually survival tactics.
Hmm.
You know, the things that we're mad proud about that we New Yorkers, and you know what I mean, um, is a response to a very rough terrain that only, you know, if you can survive or thrive there, then that's a badge of honor. But when you're here and you're not in that terrain anymore, it's important that you, if you, especially if you plan on putting roots here, like I got married here, I started a family here, I have a career here, right? It's important that you realize, like, I'm I'm not in the projects no more. I'm not in New York anymore. I'm not riding the 4 train or the Q train to work. You know, I'm not I'm not in that endless stream of people on top of people anymore. And now I have to sort of like change my perspective and let go of the things and ways that no longer serve me. But so much of those ways were intrinsic to who I am and to my survival and to the way I saw the world and interacted with people. So I think the illest thing was kind of like an unlearning, you know what I mean, of a lot of that New York shit. It's just an unlearning and being willing to let go and be like, yo, you know, some shit is bigger than you, bro. You're in some place new, and you just lean into that, and you know, hold on to your core, who you are. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna. I make sure to like not say hella and say mad because out here, like, so you would say like, oh, you know, oh, I'm mad thirsty. I gotta go get something to drink. Or you know, you would say, oh, I'm hella thirsty, you know, like, or I'm hella hungry, yo. Let's go get something to eat.
Yeah.
I always am like, nah, don't say hella, because it becomes like natural. So I'm like, yo, I'm mad hungry. And of course, you know, New York has become a meme of itself. Like New Yorkers wear Tims, we like a chopped cheese, Yankee fitted.
Uh-huh.
So out here, they kind of laugh when my accent, but you know, my accent is kind of mellowed out. My New York accent is kind of mellowed out, but I still have my 917 number, and I still say mad, and I still say one when I hang up the phone. I'm like, all right,
Uh-huh.
one. And these are all old head New York things that people out here just die laughing at, and but it's all right. You know what I mean? I like holding on to these things about myself, and they remind me where I come from.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's like one of the hardest.
Great.
And then the pace. New
Yeah,
York
yeah.
is out here, the pace is so much slower. And then I think the first 3 years here were really difficult to figure out the pace. And then the pandemic happened and the world slowed down even
Even.
more.
Hmm.
So like adjusting to that pace has been, I think, might be the hardest part. But everything else, yo, it's just like, you know, people think it's super hot out here. Nah, the Bay is always like back to school weather in New York. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's like hoodie jacket weather. And then in summer, it's like at nighttime, it's still you might still got to bring a hoodie with you. You know, even though
Mhm.
it's summer, it still might be 55 degrees at night or 60 degrees. You know, like a little sweatshirt weather. You know, light jacket weather, which I love as a nigga that likes to get fly and layer. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was the biggest difference I think from being capped in Brooklyn to living in Oakland.
Yeah, it is. Wow. So my next and last question is another person from Brooklyn also moved to the left coast, and that is science. So I think the last time I remember collaboration with the two of you might have been about maybe 3 years ago. Was that Bart Fangs?
Oh yeah, Beard Fangs, Beard
There, Fangs. I'm
Fangs.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Baird Fangs. Baird Fangs was me. So Science had a crew called Dope League that I was a part of briefly. And the other MCs on that track were part of Dope League. But I recorded that Baird Fangs. I recorded like 2013, 2014. and it was sitting in my like a hard drive for mad long, and I was like, damn, this joint hard, bro. So I kind of just threw it out as like a freebie single. But when I went on tour the second time in Europe, which was 2013, I took Science with me. By the way, you might not know this, but Science and I used to be roommates in Brooklyn and Bed-Stuy.
I did not
Um,
know that.
yeah, we used to be roommates, and before we became roommates, I took him on tour with me to Europe uh, for the second time in 2013, and we did London, Brussels, Budapest, Berlin. Um, and so right before we left, we recorded an EP called Marauders with our other roommate, a producer. He doesn't make beats anymore, but his name is Chuck Legarcon. Um, and the three of us actually went on tour together to tour Europe. And we actually never put this project out. We released two singles to the blog because it was still the blog era in
Hmm.
2013. One was called The Look of Love, and the other one, I don't remember. The other one was called Bodega Cat. And I think both of these songs are on SoundCloud still. So do your digging, folks. But Marauders International, which was me, Science, and Chuck Legarcon. So that EP with me and Science, Chuck Legarcon, Marauders International, we're looking to release it this year. It still sounds
Ah,
amazing.
okay. Hmm.
And as of 2 days ago, Science was here on Sunday,
Look at that.
recording part two to Marauders.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so we're 7 songs in to Marauders Part Two. We want to just put the first one out and be like, this is what we worked on in 2013, and here, like immediately, like maybe wait like 2 3 months and drop the next one uh, that we recorded this year. And it sounds crazy, crazy. I'll give you an advanced listen when I put it together, but crazy, crazy.
I'm looking
And
for that.
science moved to LA a little bit after I did, but
Mhm.
this is a world premiere. He's actually moving back to New York. He's going to be a homeowner in New York. He's taking over the house he grew up in, actually.
Oh wow, look at
So
that.
yeah, he's taking over the mortgage from mom's. I'm very proud of him. Uh, yeah, and he's dropping an album with this guy named Nappy High,
Happy high.
producer
Yep.
from LA. From
Praises.
LA, praises, and he's got Mick Jenkins on there, Vel Nine, Benny the Butcher. I was supposed to be on this album, but I
Uh
missed the dead I missed the deadline. I missed the deadline. So, and he didn't exactly chase me down for it either. So I was like, okay, well, whatever. But he sent me the beat, and I just didn't get a chance to record it in time. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I pre-ordered my vinyl for Praises, so when that drops,
Same here. Yep.
yeah, I got that already on deck. I'm really excited and really proud of it, of Science, man. But yes, my old roommate, and he literally was just here. Uh, you know, he got to meet my daughter, which was super dope. Full circle moment. Got to meet Uncle Jamal, so that's tight. Hold on, let me see if I can bring this up.
Ah, look at that.
Uh, yeah, he was just here, so we're
Beautiful, man. So we are gonna go out with the title track music video. These things take time. So
let's run
once
it up.
again, big salute to Fresh Daily. Salute to Parental. The album is dope. It's on vinyl. Go support that. And like we were talking about multiple times, go deep dive into Fresh Daily's catalog.
Some of the stuff is not on streaming. Some of the stuff is only on Bandcamp. So you might have to hit up that freshdaily.bandcamp.com too.
Here we go.
Yo.
These things take time. You gotta go get yours, I got mine. You gotta go get yours, I got mine. You gotta go get yours. Style before fashion, form follows function. This shit ain't bumping if the crowd ain't jumping. Your DJ trash if the sound ain't thumping. I'm king of the sound and my crown ain't slumping. I'm in the beach house, listening to beach house. Crease chinos, roll knee high and my feet out. Whenever I feel the need, I just peace out. Big K like Andre, one weekend is 3,000. Polo is 92 to 99. It's only suitable that the same applies to the wine. More raps, y'all can have all that. Part of my absence, the guy that the fall back. The season is fall, you pull it all off the rack. I pull it all out the closet, but only cause I got it. You focused on the price and I'm focused on the product. The beat is hypnotic and the trees are exotic. My steve's like a breeze in the tropics, fresh. And I ain't gotta rock with StockX. Nigga, I'm stocked up. Mac with the cheese and you crumbs the potluck. The funds and the stocks like rosters all locked up. You gotta master the basics. The past is the past, and I'm past all the chasing. Very relaxed, double taps, I'm on my plane shit. Cash me on a plane like my banks in the Caymans. Cash the arrangement if the raps hit your playlist. Keep me out your debates on who the greatest. If need be, I hit the buffets when I'm in Vegas. The Bee Gees are singing alive, that takes patience. Stevie Wonder on repeat in the basement. 3 deep in the Jeep pumping up the bass here. The weed be hopefully rolled up in the papers. Believe me, it ain't happened overnight for me to say this. It's the style and the cadence. Avoided haters. It took a while, but we made it, yeah. Hopefully now I am your favorite. If not, okay, I'm still getting paychecks. Cause these things take time. You gotta go get yours, I got mine. You gotta go get yours, I got mine. You gotta go get yours. These things take time. You gotta go get yours, I got mine. You gotta go get yours, I got mine. You gotta go get yours. Go get the album. Period.
Right on, G.
Before we go, big shout out to everyone that was tuning in. Jonathan, big shout out. NJ to AK, big shout out. Rob Deep, always, I see this man a lot now at certain events, and, he always looks like he's having a good time, appreciate him, the work that he's doing with FU right now. Great work, man.
Word.
Before we go, bless us with your shout outs.
Yo, I want to shout out my wife Erica and my daughter Aya. But I want to shout out Parental for putting this album together with me. I'm just excited. I'm happy to have it in people's hands and for people to listen to it and vibe with it. Yeah, there's too many people to shout out. So thank you to everybody who rock with me, and thank you to everybody who don't rock with me. I hope you all are doing great in the world. Word. Shout out to God, yo. Without him, nothing is possible. So I definitely feel like, yeah, seek ye first the kingdom of God. So always put God first, and you be good. You be good.
There it is. And I put up your website, which has all the links to get to you wherever you are on socials, and as well as your music.
I appreciate that.
Let me put that up one more time before we go.
All right.
And as always, on behalf of our HHDG media crew, we're going to say peace.
Peace.